Welcome to the Liberated Leader podcast. I'm your hostess, B. Chan. Together, we'll connect with leaders in the psychedelic space and explore the creations they birthed into this world, all in hopes to bring the psychedelic renaissance into the 21st century and spread the message of inner healing. Because when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. So, let's get liberated. Today we have Brian Flasche here with us. He is the owner of Botanical Solutions, co-founder of the Las Vegas Psychedelic Society, and one of the Decriminalize Nature Nevada leaders. Through his company, Botanical Solutions, he provides Kratom, dream-enhancing plants, herbal remedies, and integration coaching to help his clients improve their quality of life. The Las Vegas Psychedelic Society is a nonprofit organization focused on supporting and strengthening the local community with online and in-person integration circles, classes, and events. With the team over at Decriminalize Nature Nevada, he advocates for drug policy reform through the decriminalization of natural psychedelic medicines like mushrooms, ayahuasca, iboga, and mescaline. Welcome to the pod, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I'm really excited to talk to you today because I don't actually know too much about Kratom. Could you tell us a bit about this non-psychoactive plant?
Absolutely. So Kratom is a tree grown in Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Papua New Guinea that acts as a natural alternative to opioid pain medications, also as a great alternative to caffeine for mild stimulation. So it's from the same family as the coffee tree. In small doses, it acts like a mild stimulant, much like tea or coffee, without the forced energy or crash that you associate with caffeine. In higher doses, it acts as a mild anxiolytic. So it's great for stress relief, positive mood enhancement, just kind of like a calm focus throughout your day, really useful in times of hard labor. And in larger doses, and especially getting into extracts, it's an effective alternative to opiate pain medications. So it works to help people with, let's say, fibromyalgia, reconstructive surgeries, things of that sort, manage their pain effectively without the dependency and withdrawal we associate with an opiate.
So regarding the physical pain alleviation, is it kind of like taking an Advil and it lasts for like 4 hours or so and then you have to like keep taking it?
Yes and no. It depends on your level of pain. Like it's always easier to kind of, they call it maintenance dosing, to keep up with pain management rather than catch up with. So if you were to, let's say you're in excruciating amounts of pain and you take a medication that helps eliminate that pain, it's much easier to keep up with and take a maintenance dose rather than, wait until the kratom has left your system and then try to play catch up. It's really situational. If like someone is dealing with chronic fibromyalgia, it's a matter of their flare-ups. It's a matter of barometric pressure changes and things of that sort. If someone is struggling with reconstructive surgery, that pain is pretty incessant and you're just kind of keeping up with that. Yeah. But, it's definitely a matter of what you're treating as well as your biochemistry. So everyone's biochemistry is different. So an active dose for you might not even touch for me.
So how do you take the kratom?
So you can make it into a tea. You can consume it as a powder, where you do what's called a toss and wash. So you get like, you'll take a bit of a liquid and drink enough of that without swallowing it. So it kind of creates a surface within your mouth. You dump the powder onto that and then wash that back. You can consume it. Toss and wash.
Toss and wash. Okay. Toss and wash. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And you can also consume it in capsules as an extract, or, if you have access to the fresh leaf, you can chew it.
And what does that taste like?
Bitter. Extremely bitter. The fresh leaf, not so much, but the dried and processed leaf is extremely bitter.
Does it have the same side effect as coffee or caffeine where it keeps you up at night?
No, if anything, kratom is actually great for rest, but
Oh,
it comes down to the dosage.
right.
So interestingly enough, like if you take, a lot of people have this problem with kratom or kratom, pronounced or is how it's pronounced in Indonesia.
Calm.
If you take a small dose, it can be stimulating. So a lot of people that have heard about kratom being so helpful for, pain relief or whatever they're taking opioid medication for, they'll go out and buy some kratom and take 1 or 2 capsules and notice that it was stimulating. So they give up hope on kratom and they're just like, oh, this doesn't work for me.
Mm,
But in small doses, it can be stimulating. As you take more, the effects kind of reverse. So
mm,
as you take more, it becomes calming, and then you continue taking more from there. You reach the opioid-like euphoria. Your pupils will contract, your nose might get a little itchy. It feels like you have a warm blanket on, and you'll notice that you feel great. Your pain is diminished and sleep becomes much easier. So if kratom has kind of like left you feeling a bit stimulated, oddly enough, you take more and the effects reverse.
mhm. Wow. In terms of dosing, like
Mhm.
what would you recommend is like a smaller dose, and what is that larger dose that gets you to feel that euphoria?
So here I have to be very careful considering kratom is under fire from the FDA.
Mm,
So I can't technically give any dosage information, but I can give you my personal experience.
mm,
So in my experience, small doses of kratom, let's say half a gram to a gram and a half, which is normally 1 to 3 capsules, because a lot of capsules come in 500 milligram sizes. So 1 to 3 capsules or half a gram to 1.5 grams or a quarter teaspoon is also zero point 0.5 or 500 milligrams.
mm,
So that dose would be stimulating. Moving up from, for me, moving up from there into the, uh, I'd say 2 to 3.5 gram threshold, you're going to experience, I would experience like a calming, like a calm clarity. It's really great for positive mood enhancement. If I'm dealing with depression, PTSD, or generalized anxiety, social anxiety, it's really helpful. Um, Going up from there in the range from like 3 to 6 grams plus, I'll experience more of the opioid-like sedative pain relieving element.
wow. At that point, the 3 to 6 grams where you are getting that pain relief, um, are you still like cognitively functional?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like you're not feeling sluggish or anything like that?
No, you might feel a little tired, but you're like, as I said, everyone's biochemistry is different. So there are people that will take up to 30 grams
Wow.
of kratom leaf.
Okay.
And that sounds excessive,
Yeah.
but the active alkaloids are present in such trace amount that
Mhm.
in the raw plant matter itself, they're only at about 1.3 to 1.6% on average of
Oh.
the dry weight. So it can take a lot of the raw kratom leaf powder to be effective. But
Mhm.
when you go into taking an extract, you're able to take a lot less.
Right. This is more concentrated. Makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
You
And
mentioned earlier that it's under fire from the FDA. Why is that, or what's happening?
money.
Mm,
So, I mean, Big Pharma wants us hooked on their opioid or their opiate medication. So, an opiate means from the poppy, an
mm,
opioid means anything affecting the body's endogenous opioid system. So, because of Big Pharma's financial interests and the Big Pharma and the FDA have been in bed for a very long time. That's no secret. So the FDA 2016, in August of 2016, under the Emergency Scheduling Act, And they did so labeling kratom a threat to the public's health. Within 4 days, we had 104,000 people sign a petition saying, like, kratom has saved my life. You know, please don't take this from us. This is the one form of relief that we've found. And so the FDA has put out an import alert to make it more difficult to get kratom into the country. Recently, the DEA pushed to criminalize kratom internationally. They were pushing for an international ban, which would have caused kratom to become illegal in 37 countries.
Wow.
And that didn't go through.
Yeah.
So that said, the FDA has still been known to employ some pretty sinister tactic to criminalize a threat because they can't patent kratom. The United States government has held a patent on mitragynine isolation, which is one of the main alkaloids within kratom, since the 1960s. One of the first countries to criminalize kratom was Thailand, and they did so because it negatively impacted their opium trade.
Wow. Is it
So,
still illegal in Thailand now?
no. So since then, that policy has been revised.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Can you I'm wondering about like the history of kratom and how it came over from Southeast Asia to North America.
So, you know, I know very little of that, in all honesty. I do know that Terence McKenna is familiar with kratom and has talked about, you know, kratom being illegal in Thailand. But I came to be aware of kratom in 2011, and it was being sold in smoke shops. So I know that there are people that had gone over to Thailand, to Indonesia, that had experienced kratom and brought some back with them, and then began importing and selling in like online like apothecaries and botanical supply stores online, and then things just kind of built up from there.
Wow, super interesting. I've always been curious about what plants and herbs and whatnot that we have in Asia that also has the type of I know this is a non-psychoactive, but also has like psychedelic type tendencies or properties. I haven't really found any. I know that in traditional Chinese medicine, marijuana or cannabis was used.
I mean, I would think the THC was definitely there. They weren't genetically altering the plant the way we are today. So I would have to say the THC was present more than likely. That said, you know, it's been used for countless purposes. Hemp is such a versatile plant. It's not that the psychoactive elements are the only reason we would use it.
Right.
You know.
Definitely. Can you tell us a bit about those dream enhancing plants?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're called oneirogens, and there are lots of different plants from different cultures that are used for the process of what's called oneiromancy, and that is the process of divination through dream work. So there are plants and other herbs that enhance dream recall, they make dreams a lot more vivid. They enhance meaning making. Some are said to increase or like allow for a connection with your ancestors in the dream state. And different cultures use different herbs for, you know, different ceremonial purposes or rituals. And more often than not, they're like either smoked, brewed into a tea, and consumed before bed. And then, yeah, dreams get extremely vivid. They don't necessarily induce a lucid dream. They increase the potential for one.
Okay. Lucid dreaming is something I'm interested in and have been for a while now. Is that something that you can do?
It's something that I've worked with, yes.
Okay.
So lucid dreaming, for those that it doesn't happen naturally for, is a practice. So like it involves getting a dream journal and really consciously going to sleep and working with states of liminal dreaming rather than just REM sleep. So it's like the practice, it's almost like a meditative practice
Mhm.
of getting into these in-between states.
Do you feel, are you able to do that every night now or?
Not every night. I work with a lot of different medicines. So the different medicines that I work with, some will be, cannabis, for instance, makes dreaming really difficult.
Oh, okay.
So if you're going to be smoking a lot of weed, your dream life is going to taper off.
I didn't know
Uh,
that it had that effect.
it can for a lot of people.
Mm. Can you share with us a bit, maybe some beginner practices of what one can do to try to learn how to lucid dream?
So keeping a dream journal
Mhm.
to begin with, like a lot of the dream work process begins with enhancing dream recall. And actually, so there's a book I would highly recommend by Jennifer Dunpert, I believe is how you pronounce her name. So, and it's called Liminal Dreaming or Exploring Consciousness. But yeah, to begin with, start with keeping a dream journal and really, rather than just like consciously going to sleep, rather than just working yourself until you were exhausted and then passing out. Like allowing yourself sort of like a meditation, like getting into the dream state rather than, okay, I'm just so exhausted, I'm going to pass out the moment my head hits the pillow.
Mhm. That reminds me of one time I was falling asleep in my bed and I knew that my body was in my room in my studio apartment. But my mind was way somewhere else. I was on a different planet. I was in a musical and I was surrounded by a bunch of African people, and I was the only Asian person there. But we were all laughing and singing and dancing, and I was just having the time of my life. But I
Mhm.
knew that my body was not there. Like I knew it was still in bed. Yeah, that's the closest I've ever gotten to lucid dreaming. But I wasn't able to, like, I guess, manipulate the reality that was in my mind.
Gaining awareness of the fact that you are sleeping during your dream is the first step, really.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about how you got into psychedelics?
Hmm. So, I've been working with psychedelics since I was young. Um, I mean, the first psychedelic that I worked with would be cannabis. So, as an early teen, I was smoking cannabis just for relief from, like I suffered from suicidal ideation at an early age and extreme anxiety and things of that sort. Smoking cannabis was the first time I really experienced relief.
Mm.
And moving on to like high school into college, I began to, work with mushrooms, LSD, MDMA, things of that sort, just sort of exploring without realizing that I was finding the therapy that I was seeking. So those compounds were deeply therapeutic and life-saving, really. Uh, so yeah, just getting into exploration, just trying to have some fun with friends, going out, to raves and things like that.
Mhm. And then how did that lead into you starting Botanical Solutions?
So opiates tore apart my family, my friends. The opiate epidemic here in the US has claimed countless lives. I mean, the death toll was over like 90,000 for 2020
Mm.
for opiate overdose deaths.
Wow.
So I found Kratom in 2011 and it restored a sense of hope for me. I had the chance to start working with the Kratom company in 2015 and got into the Kratom industry and really just dedicated myself to getting Kratom into the hands of as many as possible because I saw firsthand what a miracle it was for especially those that were coming off of opiates
Mhm.
that found a way to work with this plant to manage their pain without the addiction and dependency that they were finding in big pharma, or Suboxone, methadone, these pharmaceutical alternatives to opiate medications that are more addictive than the opiates themselves.
Wow.
So I really just dedicated myself to natural alternatives and to plant medicines. And in 2017, I started up my first business supplying kratom and other herbs, and I've been with it ever since.
Mm-hmm. And that is what Botanical Solutions offer.
Yes.
Yeah, products with different herbs.
Yeah, so really just kratom is my main focus, but we offer a lot of oneirogens and natural alternatives to so much. Like we have a natural alternative to practically anything. We have kava, which is an amazing alternative to a benzo. Same with like Indian warrior or wild daga. They're natural alternatives to muscle relaxants and to SRIs, to PTSD medications, antidepressants. Um, yeah, we have a natural alternative to pretty much anything Big Pharma has produced. Like, where do you think Big Pharma got it?
Yeah.
Like, it's in nature somewhere.
Yeah.
And more often than not, there's a natural alternative to these medications that not only is more beneficial, but less addictive,
Mm-hmm.
uh, less taxing on the body, and in
Less,
general, more fun to work with.
yeah. I'm also very pro natural, pro organic, and all that. I usually don't take any drugs if I don't need to. But
Hmm.
like even when I do need to, like for example, I have a headache, or because I don't know what the natural alternatives are.
Hmm.
So my only option is to like not take anything. Like myself and probably the general public, we don't even know what the natural solutions or natural remedies are, and
I
that's
can't even tell you
yeah.
is the ridiculous thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like that's how brainwashed we are as a society.
Right,
That's like, oh yeah, Advil or ibuprofen or like whatever. I'm like, okay, there's so many other things that we can take that we can probably grow in our own backyard, but we don't know about it.
exactly. And unfortunately, we aren't able to publicly educate. We aren't able to advertise in an honest way. It's like a lot of these medicines are an if you know sort of situation. Like you have to hear about it from someone, or like, hear about things in community. You can't see it advertised online. Like I'm treading thin ice in describing a lot of things to you because I can't advertise.
Mhm.
So in the process of explaining what a lot of these medicines are, I'm making therapeutic claims,
Mhm.
which is completely illegal for the FDA. Like they
Mhm.
like kratom is not FDA approved, but neither are vitamins. So it falls into this field of pseudo-pharmaceuticals. It's
Wow.
basically big pharma can't monopolize it. Like, so the FDA doesn't approve them. That said, that doesn't mean they're bad for you. That doesn't mean that these medicines aren't absolutely miraculous, but the FDA won't put their seal of approval on them.
Mm. I didn't know that vitamins weren't approved either.
Look at the bottle of basically any herbal supplement or a vitamin, and it says not FDA approved.
I will look at my vitamin bottles after we get off this call.
Let me know.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. For example, vitamins is still kind of everywhere. They do write some stuff on the bottle saying like it's going to help with XYZ benefits and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Is that still allowed to be done with plants like kratom and whatnot?
No, so kratom is in a very, because kratom is pursued by the FDA and by the DEA, because kratom companies are held to a different standard,
Um,
because the FDA is very actively pushing to criminalize.
mhm.
Um, kratom companies can't make the sort of claims you'll see on a vitamin bottle that says great for bone health,
Right.
things like this. But they can say that, and then the FDA says these statements, or they'll just have to have somewhere on the bottle that these statements aren't approved by the FDA.
Oh, okay.
In the case of kratom, and I mean in the case of cannabis as well, we know how healthful cannabis is. We know that CBD is miraculous. We know that there are so many compounds found within this plant. We have the body's endocannabinoid system that modern medicine has ignored for ages due to propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still a Schedule 1 on the Federal Register.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't make the claims that vitamin companies are able to, that herbal supplements are able to, because the FDA really doesn't like us because we actually help people heal.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so what have you been doing so far, if you can advertise and like kind of openly talk about it? Yeah, how can we help you educate the public?
so education at the level of community. So I've started holding clubhouse rooms or getting into different clubhouse clubs that, are having these discussions. Discussions like this are really helpful.
Yeah.
When there is an exchange at the level of community, that's something the government can't take from us.
Mhm.
They can discredit through propaganda.
Mhm.
They can run smear campaigns. They can take advantage of panic and uh, like there are cases of, let's say there was a suicide with kratom in this person's system, and his mother, was rallying against kratom because she blamed kratom.
Mhm.
So the FDA took advantage of that and, cranked her up. So it's like the more we have these discussions, the more we have this exchange at the level of community, the more awareness that we can spread, the better suited we are to take health back into our own hands.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, just getting involved with, local movements, like Decriminalize Nature, things of that sort. Kratom isn't included in Decriminalize Nature's platform because kratom is already legal federally.
Mm.
So it's kind of a different direction.
That's
But
so funny that it is legal already in the US. I don't know about Canada, but we're pretty similar. But FDA is trying to make it criminal.
yeah,
I know that decriminalizing something and making it legal, it takes like 10 villages to do that. It's like a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. um I wonder if the opposite, like for example, the government trying to make things criminal, is that like an equal level of effort, or is it like faster or easier for them to do so?
so here in the United States, there is what's called the Emergency Scheduling Act.
Mm.
So it is the quickest method of criminalizing any substance, and it leaves for a 30-day commentary period for the DEA to criminalize something with only 30 days for the public to comment. So they've already tried to push kratom through and criminalize as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
Fortunately, they've failed. I believe they're going to continue to fail no matter what they try to criminalize kratom, because when you are taking the one form of relief that millions of people have found away from them, they're not going to take kindly to that. Like, they're already miserable, dude. Back up. Like, you're taking the one medication that a populace has found to help them
Mhm.
away, and they're treating chronic 10 out of 10 pain.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah.
The majority of people, the general public, don't know about kratom.
hmm
I probably fell into one of those because like I didn't until today.
hmm
What about the people in the psychedelic community? Is kratom something that is widely known, or is this kind of still a new thing that people are discovering?
It's still relatively new
Mm.
to a lot of people because unfortunately, kratom is stigmatized because of its association with opiate addiction.
Mm.
So people see, like, they don't see the countless opiate users that are able to function effectively in society that may use kratom, but they see one homeless person that is struggling that they see purchasing kratom, or they see one, person that you would label a junkie purchasing kratom and think, oh, it's just for junkies.
Mhm.
And then this unfortunate stigma is put on kratom as a result when countless use it that don't speak about it because of that stigma. Yeah, a lot of it is like an if you know sort of situation. And the more people are open about what drugs they use, the more exchange there is, the more honest exchange there is,
Mhm.
the more people will start to turn to kratom. And we're seeing a lot of that today.
Mhm.
But within the psychedelic community, I still find that kratom is still stigmatized. Like it is still, and it is amazing to me that that is the case. Like, I mean, with a space where a lot of people just like, there's at times this toxic positivity where everything is love and light and like just so much, uh, I don't know, there's a lot of judgment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of judgment based on the medicines that people work with a sense of exceptionalism, because what I found worked for me, but you're crazy for doing anything else.
Mm.
And it's like, I thought we were a little more open here. And a lot of us are, but there is still a degree of stigmatization, of judgment on and around kratom. And I understand there's a lot of fear behind it because we've lost so many to the opiate epidemic.
Mhm.
Like, we've lost countless to opiate addiction that was standardized by the government.
Mm.
And because of the fear around that, it's very easy to discredit something deemed an opiate when
Right.
in all reality, it contains opioid alkaloids, but it's not the poppy.
Right.
And ultimately, we need to heal our relationship with the poppy. Historically speaking, opium is one of the most powerful medicines that we as a species have worked with.
Yeah.
And through a corrupt government, through big pharma, that like in the war on drugs, these perceptions have shifted. And through propaganda, we've been led astray. And we need to heal our relationship with opium. We need to heal our relationship with the word drug, period.
Within the psychedelic community, we are very open. And, from the outside, people do think we're crazy for doing all this type of stuff. But then I never even thought that within this community, there's still social stigma around certain medicines and certain plants and fungi. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
blows my mind. But it reminds
Yeah.
me of when I first got into this world, I definitely noticed there are groups of people. So like some people are very pro shrooms and these people are very pro MDMA and these. So I'm just,
Right.
oh, that's so interesting. I just never thought that
Mm-hmm.
it would be segregated like that. Like, why aren't we all, aren't we all one? Like, well, what's
We're
happening?
tribal creatures by nature, right? So I find that the tribes that pop up, or a lot of tribes that pop up within the psychedelic space, are molecule based.
Mm.
So like we have, you know, I mean, I find that the people that are into LSD are also into everything else because
That's
you're
me.
more open, right? It's truly, yeah, me too. But it's like there's like plant medicine exceptionalism. There's like the clinical paradigm that like ketamine is the only thing that works,
Mm.
or for PTSD, and it's a powerful medicine, don't get me wrong. Ketamine is one of my favorite molecules. It's an absolute lifesaver. But and just found out ketamine is produced by a fungi naturally, so it's not only synthetic, but like there are just it's really clicky at times,
Yeah. Yeah,
unfortunately.
that's the word. That is the word. Cliquey. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so funny. You mentioned earlier toxic positivity. Could you go
Mhm.
into more detail about that a bit? What does that mean?
So some will like project this unrealistic standard that everything is always sunshine, rainbows, and unicorn shit. It's like things can be bad too.
Mhm.
There is beauty in the struggle. There is beauty in the range and depth of experience. If it's all, don't get me wrong, we need a lot more love and light, but it can't all be just, you know, sunshine and rainbows all the time. Like there is a range to this experience that when we fail to acknowledge or we fail to appreciate, we deprive ourselves or we tend to almost shame
Mm,
those for going through difficulty. You
mm,
know, it's like, why aren't you already healed? Why aren't you like being where you're at right now isn't okay. And you're perfect as you are. Period. That simple. We can be better. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. We are in dire need of healing, and we have that hope today. We
mm,
have unparalleled potential for hope and healing, but it's okay not to be okay too.
mm.
And I feel like sometimes it's overlooked.
I think that's a great reminder for us all that it's okay not to be okay. Yeah. And to that point, it's like, well, what is light without darkness? Right? You kind
Right,
of need to experience the full spectrum in order to have like a true and kind of more like accurate experience of, well, what is life?
right.
Yeah. Wow. For people who want to get to know Kratom and other, natural remedies more, is there a few resources that you can point them to?
So if you go to my website, I do have a resources page.
Mm,
So just hop on over to botanicalsolutions.com. There are, I mean, Kratom Science is a great resource. Yeah, I would recommend to be mindful of where you get your information. Like
yeah,
WebMD, Mayo Clinic, a lot of, the first results you're going to see from a Google search are funded by the FDA. That's information the FDA has put out that isn't accurate by any stretch of the imagination.
yeah.
So it's like dig a little deeper beyond the surface before tapping out.
Mhm. And just a note to everybody on, search engines and whatnot, like how it works is, people write articles and they target keywords that they know that people are already looking up. And then they get a lot of other organized or other websites to link back to them. And that's how they get to the number one spot. So it is a little bit manipulated, to say the least.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And unfortunately, it comes down to profit.
Yeah, I was gonna say it comes down to money. Yeah. Mhm. Could you tell us a bit more about Las Vegas Psychedelic Society and Decriminalize Nature Nevada leaders? I know that you've made a little bit of progress with
hmm
council members.
So definitely, right now with the Las Vegas Psychedelic Society, we're just bringing together the Las Vegas psychedelic community, especially considering there are so many people coming to psychedelics for the first time that have heard of the benefits of microdosing, that are hearing about ayahuasca retreats, they're hearing about healing from opiate addiction with iboga, or the healing from mushrooms. And it's important to note that kratom is amazing for overcoming dependency, but it isn't the healer that mushrooms are or that psychedelics are. So if you don't work to heal the underlying trauma that is at the root of your addictions or at the root of your anxieties, your depressions, your whatever you name it, then you're only substituting.
Mm,
And if you don't work to address and to heal that underlying trauma, like the quality of life possible with, just turning the kratom to coat these symptoms is infinitely greater than that with heroin or with an opiate. But yeah, it's definitely worthwhile to work to heal the trauma too.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, with the Psychedelic Society, it's been beautiful bringing together people for integration circles to be able to share a bit of their practice, their story in, the presence of a loving and supportive community that are all working on healing as well.
Mhm.
Um, so just finding like ultimately we've lost touch with the fact that we as a species are tribal creatures by nature. Like we are interdependent. We need one another. We need connection. So it's beautiful to see that coming together in this community. Um, for the purpose of healing. It's gorgeous. Um, and yeah, just we'll be holding different, like right now we're putting together a recovery program specifically for, not specifically to psychedelics, but an alternative to the recovery paradigm where it's like more so open-minded without the black and white, clean versus dirty stigma and the dogma you associate with a 12-step program.
Mhm.
So just recovery meetings and educational events. And yeah, over at Decriminalize Nature. So we here in Las Vegas, also up in Reno, are getting together to push for the decriminalization of mushrooms, ayahuasca, iboga, and mescaline containing cacti through deprioritization and defunding. So that would allow for the grow, gather, and give model. So rather than the legalization model, which would result in ultimately corporate interest controlling access, we as a grassroots movement and as a community are able to grow our own medicine, to consume our own medicine, to gather around ceremony and healing, and to give medicine to our loved ones. So I feel like it is imperative that we establish this before legalization
Mhm.
so that we maintain access, that the communities that aren't able to afford these ridiculously overpriced therapy models or these medicines, like, I mean, a ketamine infusion is $700.
Yeah.
Like the people that need it most, that have PTSD, that have like, that are struggling just to wake up every morning, more often than not, don't have $700 laying around.
And I don't think most of it is covered by insurance either, right?
No, no,
Yeah,
that's the other
it's out of
thing.
your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's all out of pocket. So, ensuring that we are able to access these compounds, that we are able to come together as community to work with them and to support one another in our practice is key
Mhm.
to the healing that we ultimately need. If we allow our healing to remain in the hands of the rich ruling elite, we're fucked. It's that simple.
Agreed. So this grow, gather, give model is, could you explain that a bit more to us?
Yeah, so I mean, it would allow for us to cultivate our own mushrooms or our own medicine, um, to gather in ceremony, to consume with, our community, and to provide these medicines to our loved ones more often than not. It doesn't allow for the legal distribution framework.
Mm.
So in the same way, like a lot of dispensaries very early on were not able to sell cannabis, but they were able to accept donation into their collective and give a patient their medicine. The same thing would work with churches. like sacred mushroom organizations. It's like people would be able to donate to a collective or to a church and receive their sacrament,
Mhm.
but they wouldn't be able to just
Buy it, right?
legally advertise for sale. So, I mean, I know that we'll get there eventually,
Mhm.
but as it stands, we're able to, well, we are soon to be able to at least access these medicines without fear of criminal pursuit.
Mhm. Yeah. And how's the process going with this model?
Surprisingly well. I mean, surprisingly and not surprisingly, because we need this healing desperately. So it's like, I mean, one would only hope that elected officials would be open to, especially considering there's just so much data. There are countless studies coming out there. Like everybody's favorite celebrity is drinking ayahuasca or eating mushrooms these days. So it's like at this point, the masses are waking up,
Mhm.
and the our elected officials are supposed to represent the majority, and like so they are coming around, especially when most of these politicians have had experiences themselves and
Oh,
they're closeted. They can't say anything because they're a politician. But dude, I mean, especially like I'm from San Diego, I'm from California. Like just breathing in California, like as you age, like you've smoked weed. Like everybody's
yeah.
done something.
Mhm.
And like the healing that is possible with these compounds is beautiful. The insight, the just expanded states of consciousness
Mhm.
are instrumental to our growth and evolution as a species. And we've been working with these compounds since time immemorial.
Mhm.
All of these, like at our root, most, if not every culture has like an entheogenic practice. And so, I mean, that's where we get this like ancient future
Yeah.
paradigm. Like we are returning to the ways that we're returning to nature ultimately.
Yeah.
Because if we don't get in tune with nature, nature will wipe us out. Like we don't need to be here for nature to go on.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, I do have hope. And it is beautiful to see that hope reflected in elected officials.
Mhm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still, I mean, private interests come into play. There are politicians that, deeply, I don't want to say conservative politicians can't be for psychedelics because that's not true. Um, it is so the healing that we find with these medicines transcends party politics. And that's another thing that's beautiful to see.
Mhm. I think it's important for us to, support you in the Decriminalization Act because we're all tied together. And once we see a precedent set somewhere, we'll then see the possibility, and that would start popping up all over the place as well. If you don't know where to go to find more information, or you want to, join the community and interact with people with like minds, or just want to find out more about psychedelics, like look into your local society. Like every
Yeah,
major city has one. We have one in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, I'm pretty sure Calgary, Alberta has it as well.
definitely.
And Europe.
And I mean, all over the globe,
Yeah.
really, like we have the Psychedelic Society of India. We have like literally in every country, there's one popping up.
Mhm.
We are a global movement.
Yeah.
And if you don't see one with a quick Google search, like go to the San Francisco Psychedelic Society, go to any online event with another psychedelic society and ask around.
Yeah.
More often than not, someone knows someone in your area that has similar interests that or there's already a movement for decriminalization effort or a psychedelic society in your area. It
Mhm.
doesn't hurt. Like, don't tap out at a Google search. I
Yeah,
can't stress that enough. Just do a little more digging.
yeah, for sure. And just so people know, like these are all nonprofit organizations, all volunteer run. There's no hidden
Mhm.
motive or anything like that. And yeah, it's a safe place for people to gather to learn more about these medicines.
Right. I mean, my hidden motive is your healing.
Yes.
Like, because we all need it.
So I know that you went to meet Delic
Mhm.
recently. Could you tell us about your involvement in that? How did you find it, and any kind of like learnings and takeaways that you have?
It was beautiful. It was a psychedelic wellness conference.
Mm,
What a time to be alive,
yeah.
right? That uh, the topics covered were uh, brilliant, and there were a lot of you know just brilliant minds in attendance, a lot of beautiful efforts, a lot of really heartfelt, like the Heroic Hearts Project was there.
Mm,
Um, the Las Vegas community was there in force. There were a lot of booths from vendors that are, it's finally kind of okay for the underground to come out of the woodworks and just like, yo, what's up? We've been here. Hi. And like, so there are growers that have been at it for ages and are just way ahead of the game
mm,
because they've been doing this for so long and that are just like, it's finally cool to get some air. So it's really cool to see them coming out. It's really cool to just meet other, healers, other like whether you're from the clinical, the shamanic paradigm, it's just like the melding of these drastically different worlds is so beautiful to witness.
mm,
And yeah, it's just this is the healing that we need, through I mean, I've heard like it's the eagle condor prophecy
oh,
uh, is so to my understanding, I know very little of it, but it's like the indigenous wisdoms uh, of like curanderos and like taitas and like the ayahuasca quote unquote shamans meeting with the Western medicine, these different, these dramatically different paradigms coming together, and being the evolution that we need to transcend our current situation. Like,
mhm,
I mean, we look at the climate crisis, we look at the environment, we look at the economy, the political polarization, the like PTSD. I mean, we all ultimately trauma is at the core of everything. Like, we're a traumatized species, we're a traumatized planet,
mm,
and we can heal that. And we need to get to it, and we're doing it. It's cool to see that not only the you know leaders in the psychedelic space that you can find on social media are present,
mm.
but really like everyone is coming together.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, everybody loves drugs, right? And if you don't, you haven't done the right drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. True. Cool. What is next for you in your journey?
Hmm. So next for me in my journey, uh, I'm really enjoying and looking forward to facilitation as, legality opens up and I can openly facilitate ceremony
Mm,
to help society heal, to bring together groups of people to access these medicines, whether it be for the first time or that like want to do so on a regular basis for their growth, for their healing.
mhm,
It's beautiful. Also, just the decriminalization effort, is massive. The psychedelic society, like, is growing rapidly. Um, and really just taking my business and continuing to evolve that. Um, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
That's good. Sounds like you got your plate full.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Got a couple plates full, for sure.
Okay. Before we go into the lightning round, where can our listeners connect with you online?
So you can find me on social media. You can find me at my website, Botanical Solutions, or reach out to me through the Las Vegas Psychedelic Society and also Decriminalize Nature.
Sounds good. Okay, lightning round. This is how it works. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay. What is your favorite psychedelic medicine?
Oof. So many. Okay. It changes based on the flavor of the day.
Oh,
right?
okay. What is it today?
So today, I'm gonna say ketamine.
Okay.
Ketamine or LSD.
Okay. I haven't tried ketamine yet.
Highly recommend it.
I've heard too many stories about going down the K-hole, so I'm just like,
People talk about the K-hole as if, and thank you, mad props to Daniel Shankin at TAM Integration. People talk about the K-hole as if it's a bug, when in all reality, it's a feature of the molecule. The K-hole is something to be embraced. It's just a matter of set and setting. I don't recommend a K-hole while you're like in the middle of a dance floor.
Yeah.
That's not ideal, right? But
what's the latest lesson that you learned?
Humility. Knowing that ultimately we know nothing. We are such a primitive species. We culturally, as the human race, know nothing of what there is to know.
Yeah.
So stay humble.
What's next on your bucket list?
Next on my bucket list. I'm really trying to make it out to Ireland.
Make it out to where?
Ireland.
Ireland. Oh, okay, cool. What's the biggest limiting belief that you discovered about yourself?
That because I am a white male, that I cannot help others find the same healing that I have. Because of my privilege. And because it's like in a way, I'm ashamed of the privilege that I have. But if wielded properly and used to the benefit of all, then it can actually be a benefit to all. At the end of the day, we're all one. And your highest highs, your lowest lows, and no higher or lower than mine. We may have differences in background, differences in cultural experience, but at the end of the day, we're all human.
What's your favorite quote?
Love loves to love love.
Last question here. What do you want the world to know?
That you are loved, you are supported, simply because you exist. I love you. I know countless others that also love you. You're not alone. And that ultimately, we are as alone as we choose to be.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for your time. This wraps up this episode. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing so much new things with me. I've learned so much just talking to you in this hour alone, and for blessing us with your presence. Thank you for being an inspiration to the aspiring liberated leaders out there. And I'll check in with you soon.
Thank you so much. It was great speaking to you.
My pleasure.
This podcast is brought to you by Akita Agency. We transform overwhelmed healers into liberated leaders with our signature Akita Liberation Loop method. We help psychedelic therapists and coaches evolve from a one-to-one to a one-to-many client model by co-creating evergreen funnels that lead to online courses and group coaching programs. We have a special gift for our listeners, a complimentary, bite-sized training series to level up your evergreen funnel knowledge. If you're not familiar with or feel overwhelmed with marketing, sales, and funnels, then this training is for you. Just go to akitaagency.com/tutorial. Welcome to the Liberated Leader podcast. I'm your hostess, B. Chan. Together, we'll connect with leaders in the psychedelic space and explore the creations they birthed into this world, all in hopes to bring the psychedelic renaissance into the 21st century and spread the message of inner healing. Because when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. So, let's get liberated.